Hey, this is Zachlog the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
His mustache.
I tried one a couple weeks ago. I was not very successful and gave up for the time being. I may try again a while later. And we are joined tonight by author Frank Luke. Is there anything? Say hello.
Hello there.
So, is there any interesting book or project up lately that you'd like to tell people about?
Yes. Just last week, my most recent short story was released in Richard Paolinelli's Exploring Infinity. The title of the story is Messus Cetum Multa. It's Latin, meaning the harvest is plentiful. And it is about a Dominican priest on his way to be a missionary in the New World who stops at a hotel or an inn, he thinks it is, and finds that he can never leave. All the stories in the anthology revolve around this hotel, which was originally inspired by the Eagle Song Hotel, California.
Yeah, I was about to ask if he could check out anytime he likes.
Like, not a whole lot of dark desert highways in the Dominican Republic, I'm just saying.
He doesn't even make it out of Spain when he finds the inn. But he's one of the few people who does not go insane, they don't go insane in the hotel, but they forget where they are and they forget about their outside lives, and don't realize how much time is passing. And he keeps his sanity because as a priest, he has a very disciplined life. So he makes a calendar in his room so that he can keep track of feast days and prayers of the hours.
I see. What was the title of the collection again?
Exploring Infinity.
Okay. So, if you would like to check that out, I can put a link to that. I'm guessing that would be available on Amazon.
It is.
Okay, and I can put a link to that in the show description. So, we are getting together tonight to talk about a poem by Richard Crashaw. I've seen a few titles for it. Where I found it and the title I stuck with is Upon the Bleeding Crucifix by Richard Crashaw. And Frank has volunteered to read that for us tonight. So let me get this up on the screen for everybody, and we will. What do we got? It here we go. And when you guys can see that, oh, and back to the top. There we go.
Got it.
Okay, when you are ready.
Just soon no more, it is full tide. From thy head and from thy feet, and from thy hands and from thy side, all the purple rivers meet. What need thy fair hair bear apart, in showers, as if thine eyes had none? What needs thy help? They help to drown thy heart, that strives in torrents of its own. Thy restless feet now cannot go, for us and our eternal good, as they were ever wont, what though they swim, alas, in their own flood. Thy hands to give thou canst not lift, yet wilt thy hands still giving be. It gives, but oh, itself the gift, it gives through bound, but bound 'tis free. But oh, thy side, thy deep digged side, that hast a double Nilus going, nor ever was the Farian tide half so fruitful, half so flowing. No hair so small, but pays his river. To this Red Sea of thy blood, their little channels can deliver something to the general flood. But while I speak, whither are run all the rivers named before? I counted wrong. There is but one, but oh, that one is one all o'er. Rain-swollen rivers may rise proud, bent all to drown and overflow. But when indeed all is overflowed, they themselves are drowned too. 'Tis thy blood's deluge, a dire chance, dear Lord, to thee, to us is found, a deluge of deliverance, a deluge lest we should be drowned. Ne'er wast thou in a sense so sadly true, the well of living waters, Lord, till now.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. So, Nate, would you like to kick us off with on this one?
Yeah. That was difficult to read, both in the technical sense and in the thinking about what God's incarnation had to go through because I'm an idiot. I mean, just for my personal evil, all of these, these streams of gore were loosed from the kindest and best heart of humanity ever, to the point that, after a while, you can't tell what wound is what. It's all just blood. But because of that, it doesn't have to be mine. God is great, and praise him.
It is right and just. Sorry, I missed that last part.
Also, just for the writing style, it is archaic and a little difficult sometimes because when he spells flood, F-L-O-U-D, my brain always wants to go somewhere else. I'm like, what is a floud?
Several of the words here, I had to go back and check and see what it's rhyming with to determine.
Yeah.
Yes,
I did a few rounds of that.
Do I have the? Let me see if I have the date here of when this was written, because that's 106-221. Oh, there's another one by him.
I'll
so, what would that be?
Farian?
Oh, Pharian, like Pharaoh.
Pharian. There you go. Pharian. Papa Hotel, Alpha Romeo, Indigo, Alpha November. All you kids out there, look it up. It's great. It means Egyptian, which is like, all right, I guess it has to do with pharaohs.
No, I do not have it. So this is the book that I found this poem in.
Book of verse. All right.
Which is, yes, it's a collection of demented and morbid poetry, in which I've done. There's a few out of there I've already done, and I have several more marked that I'd like to get to at some point. It does not, however, have the date of the poem, so I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, the spelling is a little odd. I'm guessing that's just, basically before English spelling was seriously regularized, because like the way we think of it today, as in this word is spelled this way, period, kind of a relatively new thing. I think there's I have no idea how true this is, but there's something at least attributed to Andrew Jackson. I think it's a damn poor mind that can only think of one way to spell a word. But yeah, it's an intense poem if you start seriously thinking about what he's describing. And in a way, one of the first things I think about with this one is Mel Gibson's movie The Passion of the Christ. And I remember I've heard people a few times talking about how like they say it's kind of ridiculous in that it's like over the top, just ridiculously bloody, and like how can one human, how would one human have all that blood? And like I was like, actually, I remember hearing a while back on some detective or forensic expert saying that the thing that most people would have a hard time believing if they saw an actual murder is just the sheer quantity of blood that you're likely to see. So it's actually quite likely that what we saw there was pretty accurate to reality. It's just, believe it or not, we're used to having that kind of thing a little more toned down in our entertainment. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that really brought it home to me exactly what an ordeal all this is the fact that the Romans themselves did not know how to tell you how much this hurt. They're like, man, how much does it hurt to be crucified? And they all looked around at each other and they're like, we have no comparison. So they said that it simply is excruciating. To be crucified hurts as much as it hurts to be crucified. They can only describe it in tautology.
Well, and the thing I think most people don't appreciate, like the part where they actually nailed them to the beams, that's not required. That's kind of an extra. That's not the actual execution. The execution is that you hang up there until you can no longer support your weight and you suffocate to death. The actual execution. Like putting nails through your wrist is just a bonus on top they do for some people. And so yeah, it's
I think a carpal tunnel act up.
So it takes several days for someone to be crucified because your body, your body just goes into survival mode and you slump down, and then whenever you stop breathing, your brain just forces your legs to push yourself back up so you can take another breath. And this just continues on and on and on.
And yeah, and so another thing
That's one of the
that
remarkable that Jesus actually died really fast for a crucifixion victim, because he just was like, okay, it's done. And so that's why they stabbed him. They're like, that can't be right. And so, hence the double blowing.
And also, it's another thing a lot of people tend to misunderstand when they read the accounts. I think in the Gospels it does say they were talking about breaking the legs of. They were considering breaking the legs of two of them. If I understand correctly, that was basically because the next day was the Sabbath, and since they're in Israel, they didn't. This kind of thing shouldn't be going on that day, so they wanted to get it over with. And breaking their legs was actually a way of being nice to them and getting it over quickly.
Because at that point, you can't push yourself back up and you go ahead and suffocate.
So, yes. So, again, this way of dying is so awful that breaking your legs to get it over with quickly is being nice to you.
Now, 30 years before Jesus' crucifixion, there was a major uprising in Judea and the Roman Empire. And at every crossroads, they crucified one of the rebels with the word rebel written across the top of the cross. They then saw 30 years of peace.
Yeah. We're going to make sure that these, it's like these people died exceedingly horribly. This is why.
Yep.
Keep that in mind. Romans were not nice, but they were effective.
That was the revolt of Simon the Zealot.
Two of the Jesus apostles of his camp. Am I imagining that? Because two of them were the. Okay.
Simon Zelotes, that's different from the Simon that was crucified, that led the revolt. The Zealots were a militia group a very skilled militia group, and the highest, they had a special forces team within the Zealot army that it was said that they could walk into a crowd, stab a person, and no one would know until the person would slump and they would already be out, the assassin would already be out of the crowd. They were called the men of the short dagger, which is pronounced Ish Sikarot in Hebrew and mangled in the Greek as Iskarki.
Oh, okay. Huh. Okay. Did not know he was, well, okay. I don't know what to do with that one right now, but, yeah, it's,
I found the poem itself, talking about, but oh, thy side, thy deep digged side, that hath a double nihilus going, nor ever was the Pharian tide half so fruitful, half so flowing. It's interesting because the floods of the Nile were what allowed Egyptian civilization. It was a predictable, repetitive flood every year that deposited all this nutrient-rich soil, and you could say, all right, flood's going to happen, then we farm. You can set a farming schedule around it. And it built kingdoms and really advanced civilization. And so it was, an incredibly nourishing thing. And to compare that, and to say that it was never anywhere near as great as this, I really love the reverence that shows to what sacrifice of Jesus did for the rest of the world. He really set up, the harvest that we've had since, all these billions of souls, and more coming. And so, I really respect the way this is written, and I really appreciate kind of a lot of the, the detailed way it sort of pours over this horrible scene.
Yeah, one interesting thing to me, and I didn't notice this until I was looking up some kind of other information about this, and someone said, so this must have been at least in the 1500s, that some people were worried that Richard Crashaw was a little too Catholic in England, and this was part of it. And I hadn't thought about that before, but actually this is, I don't know what the reason is. I don't know where the ideological divide connects to this, but for whatever reason, Catholics do tend to focus on the very, I don't know, earthy reality of these events of Jesus, crucifixion, a lot more than Protestants do. And I don't know why that is, and I don't know what to make of it, but it definitely seems to be true. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess this does, in that way, seem kind of like a little more Catholic than some people might have been comfortable with then.
Well, I think we Protestants do ourselves a disservice by trying to sanitize this whole thing.
Yes, we do.
It sort of changes your relationship with salvation. When you think it's just that, oh yeah, he died, it hurt. They didn't shoot him in the face. They tortured him to death. So it's like, if you kind of get in your head exactly what was going on, you start to think about, wow, maybe I should take this more seriously. It's not just going, sorry, God, can I please go to heaven? There's not a whole lot of laughs to be had. This is not a light thing. And, our salvation and our worship isn't based in a wooden cross. It's not based in, the earth of a hill or the stone of a tomb door. It is based in blood. The blood of a man. The blood of God, who is also a man. Blood. Not wood, not iron nails, not earth of a hill, not stone of a tomb, not cloth of a shroud. We believe in blood. Things like this, it's just about to be canon.
Well, and it's also part of the thing, and I think we talked about this before with when Matt Cochran was with us, and we were talking about on being human, and it is. This is one thing some people seem to lose track of today. Christianity is not a purely spiritual faith. It's not airy, disconnected from physical reality. That's not what this is supposed to be. Christianity is very very connected to the physical world. And our bodies. We're not when we're in heaven. After the whole deal is over, we are going to have resurrected bodies. They're not going to be exactly the same like they are now. We know that much. What they are going to be like, we only have a tiny little idea. But we are going to have bodies. We're not just going to be, disembodied spirits. We're not going to be abstract ideas. And, again, the fact that, God himself, became a man and walked among us and, went not just through death, but through maybe not the worst, but pretty horrible way to die. Like that, I think that matters. And I think that connects to that important part of our faith as well. That our bodies are real, our bodies matter, and what we do with them and to them, matters to God. Let's see. It's actually kind of funny because we're doing talking about this poem tonight, and I'm always spinning up, getting ready for the next one I'm recording, and the next one is actually, I think some people would consider it at least a little bit blasphemous. Obviously, I don't think that's a serious problem, or I wouldn't do it. But it's kind of funny putting those two back to back. I didn't do that on purpose, but you'll see when it comes up. Anyway, not anyway, but so let me take a look here. What's it? I don't know. I don't have a lot of specific things I want to pull out of the poem here. It is kind of, I will say, it's kind of weird to me, like the next to last full stanza, rain-swollen rivers may rise proud, bent all to drown and overflow, but when indeed all's overflowed, they themselves are drowned too. And like, I get, like he's talking about how, there's, so much blood that like it's all, there's so many wounds and there's so much blood that it's all become one, but it kind of seems to like pull back from the very focused nature of the rest of it and become weirdly abstract for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
That is odd. I don't know. It just sometimes, it's hard to keep thinking about something that heavy and that just harsh.
Well, and then, the last stanza, which is, or the last full stanza, this thy blood's deluge, a dire chance, dear to thee, to us is found a deluge of deliverance. And it's kind of weird because that is the intense contradiction of the crucifixion and of Jesus' death, because at one and the same time, like, it's the best thing God ever did and the worst thing we ever did. And it's exactly it's you know in the same act, and it's a very strange thing that history centers around.
It's what Tolkien called the eucatastrophe, the good disaster.
Well said, Tolkien.
Well, yeah, and it's and it is all. Go ahead.
It's when humanity reached, I feel like, just about its greatest level of guilt. And in that moment, Jesus is like, perfect. And he plucked the fruit just as it ripened and said, okay, this is mine now. He drank the cup as it came full. He just took it all down. And so, yeah, best thing God ever did, worst thing we ever did, sure. All at the same time. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
And it's thinking about the Tolkien. I'm actually in the middle of rereading The Lord of the Rings right now because it's been a few years, and I'm like, you know what? It's been too long. Should do that. Pick that up again. And it is in I would say not the only moment, but a moment of that would be in the Battle of is it Pelennor Fields? Is that the one outside of Gondor? Okay.
Yeah.
And, they're in the middle of this battle. It's not going well for Gondor. And then they see these ships coming up the river with black sails. They're like, well, I guess it's over now because the side that was already kind of winning just got reinforcements. And then, and then Aragorn and his army, got off the boats. By the way, in the books, as opposed to the movie, the ghosts just helped him take the ships. It was humans on the ships in the books that got off of the boats. But, Aragorn came off with his army, and suddenly, the good guys have reinforcements. And not only do they have reinforcements behind the enemy lines, and now the enemy is fighting on two sides, which is you never want to do. You never want to do that. And it's that moment where, despair and disaster, turns into hope. And, and for us, we have the whole story. We've read through the last page of the story. We know what's coming, but for Peter and John and for James and Mary, they didn't know. All they knew was this guy who we bet everything on is now dead. Pretty horribly. And that could pretty much happen to any one of us now because we were with him. And then, a few days later, actually, no, he's not. And, and it's actually like the video I just did. Sometimes hope means turning the next page. Because, if you didn't know the story, you're reading the Gospels, and, you're reading the story of this great teacher, this prophet, this miracle worker. Oh, the Jews, turned him over to the Romans who executed him. And you stop there. That's kind of awful story. But you turn the next page. And, that's not just this story, that's our own stories. Things can look pretty bleak. Turn the next page.
It's a bit like being a character who knows he's innocent. Like, if like, if you have this guy who's like, I think I'm a fantasy protagonist. Hang on a minute. And so he realizes that, yes, I am, one, aware of this, that I'm in a story, and B, genre savvy. He can know that the last page is written and that everything else that goes on between then and now is the challenge before the victory. But the victory is already in stone. It is set. The universe has its end point. And so it's the same for us. We know essentially the same thing. We are characters in a holy tale. We are, admittedly, probably not the protagonist, but we're in there. We're all working out this plot that God has set in motion. And obviously, free will is a thing, all of that, but we know where we're ending up, and we win. So, what can we do to get to that point?
Well, and it's two things about that. That reminds me. The one moment reminds me of Paralandra, which I reread not long ago. And one thing.
The bad people?
What's that?
We should be beating the crap out of the bad guys?
That sounds really fun.
That was one of my favorite
Minecraft. That sounds like a great idea in
No.
Minecraft.
That was one of my favorite moments in all of literature when you realize that, okay, I'm not going to be able to out-debate this guy. What should I do? And then, like, his lizard brain just pipes up, beat the crap out of him. I've been sitting here on a divine mission. Am I really supposed to just whoop the heck out of an old man? Huh. I've dreadfully overcomplicated this.
Well, I don't think that was ever supposed to be the first move. I don't think that was supposed to be the first move, but it was the final move in the game. But what I was saying, one thing from that, near the end, he talks about how in God's plan, the tiny, like the tiniest atom, floating out there in the void. Everything, like all of creation, was made for that, and that was made for all of creation. And like, because you said, well, maybe we're not the protagonist, but that's actually kind of the funny thing about the way God does things, because in a way we are, like, all of, like, because God doesn't see things the way we do, and God sees the whole story, every one of our lives all at once. We have limited attention and limited time, and that's not how things seem to him. And to him, every one of us is the main character of a story, and every one of our choices do matter, far more than we think. And thinking about that, it's kind of scaring me right now. But
Thinking about it right.
It's and so yeah, there was something else I wanted to say with that, but now I've kind of well, and the other thing is, like, we know where the big picture ends. The good guys win. God is the winner. But any good story you read, okay, let's say the good guy is going to win, but what does it cost him along the way? And what of his who makes it? Does one of his friends die? Does one of his friends turn on him? There's, even when we know where the big picture goes, fascinating thing about life is there's still a lot of drama, because we don't know, where each of us ends up in that. And again, our choices matter. And it's now I'm thinking of G.K. Chesterton, and he said, the Hindus, think that life is, like a mathematical sum, whereas the Christians think that life is an adventure story, and you never know where an adventure story can go. Anyway, I'm out for the moment.
It's you brought up something that I have been thinking about an awful lot the last few months. The things that we miss in Protestantism. We take Christ off the cross. Most of our decorations will be an empty cross instead of a crucifix on it. We take a lot of things to the spiritual level and forget about what went on in the physical. My dad cannot imagine Jesus laughing. He simply cannot. But Jesus, he was a pun master. He likes word plays, and in fact, one of my professors who back translated a lot of the Greek into Hebrew said that he liked groaners.
Jesus dad jokes.
God the Father jokes.
They are enforced by the highest authority.
I knew puns were the language of the divine. I've inflicted it on people my entire life, knowing I was in holy service.
So wait, Nate, I may have told you about this. I'm pretty sure I haven't told Frank about this. There is I found out about this 10 or 15 years ago, something. There is actually a physically locatable spot in your brain that does puns. Because they found out about this. I would have to look up the details, but like a German brain surgeon was operating on a conscious patient. Okay, and they found that whenever they stimulated a particular spot, the patient would take whatever had just been said and just start off on a string of puns. And so there is a physically locatable part in your brain that comes up with humorous associations between similar sounding but unrelated words.
Prefrontal cortex.
That too, and it's and the really weird thing, like there is actually a classified disease of it's called Forster's syndrome, which is compulsive punning, which basically is kind of like epilepsy that affects this particular spot.
So it's like hilarious Tourette's.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So
But going back to what Frank said, I love the brain surgery, but I've had this in my mind for like several minutes. That I don't mind so much. I don't mind so much that we take Jesus off of the cross for our iconography. He came down.
Right.
He rose. I don't think we need to be looking up there and thinking of him always as the suffering Christ. We need to remember that. We need to remember what that meant and what that was. But at the same time, he's our victorious Lord. He is in heaven. Jesus is not around. He is in heaven at the right hand of God. The Spirit dwells with us now. And Jesus intercedes before the Father.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree sometimes that, we let it go too far. But also, I love the idea of Jesus as a man. Like, for a long time, he's this unapproachable figure, but then you read about it and you really think about what they're saying. Jesus knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew he was going to do that. But Lazarus was his friend. And he was sad that the man had died, even knowing that I'm going to stroll over there and call him back out and be like, Lazarus, come on. Get out here, boy. And he's going to pop up and walk out. He's going to be fine. But even then, knowing he was going to do that, he's still sad. Like, oh, man. You know, he's like, my friend died. I know he's like, okay, I need to do it this way, but if I'd have got there faster, I could have saved him. I could have stopped him from dying at all. You know, so yeah, he was a man. You know, he had temptations. I wonder sometimes, you know, if Jesus ever had a crush. You know, did Jesus ever think of what it would be like to just shrug off the mantle and go live a life? You know, not put in his time, do this very short, intense ministry, and then die in the worst way we could figure out how to kill a person on purpose. And instead just be like, yeah, you know what? No, I'm going to go meet a nice Galilean girl. We're going to have 14 kids, and I'm going to teach them, you know, the will of the Father, except for I didn't do it. You know,
well,
it's like I couldn't. Let's just say I'm glad I wasn't ever in that position, because if I had been Jesus, we're all screwed.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's
I want to put in a plug
ahead.
here I want to put in a plug here for a product that I've come to dearly love. The Chosen is a TV series, been developed for TV. It's funded completely outside Hollywood. It's like crowdfunded, but it's done with very good production values, and the writing and acting is fantastic. It's called The Chosen, again. And it's following sort of the process of picking up the disciples and going through the New Testament. But one of the great things about it is that it's not one of these things that's like, this is only what Jesus did. They admit straight away that a lot of this stuff that we're showing as events is not in the Bible. We're sort of filling in things. But we're trying to tell a bigger story about how Jesus developed these people into heroes when they weren't. And so you get to see like Simon, Simon part 1 is becomes Peter later. Simon Peter was, they got him portrayed as sort of like a huckster, and he's, in trouble, and he's kind of shady, but also he's extremely charismatic and people like him, and he does have a code of honor, but he's a foul up. Simon the Zealot, meets Jesus on a mission to murder somebody, but then it's like, oh wow, okay, I can't go through with this. I have to change who I am. They got Matthew being an autistic tax collector. That's kind of great. But it's all really good, and it's not, supposed to be something to be like, aha, look how clever we are reimagining these characters. They take sort of hints and little gleanings you get from the scriptures, and they really build some great characters, and they're telling a beautiful story, and they're telling it in a very powerful way. But you get to see Jesus being a dude. Like, he's at the wedding, right, where he turns water to wine. In the Bible, you really only hear about that. But then he's also joking with his disciples. In the show, he's joking with the disciples about how, I heard Simon couldn't dance. I heard he's got like 2 left feet. I can't wait to see this. Hey, let's go have some wine and dance. And, he's a man. He's doing these great miracles. He shows all this wisdom. And there's some times where he's very clearly being capital J Jesus. Actually, capital J Jesus. He's the whole thing. And it's like, all of a sudden, he's very awe-inspiring. And he's just like, you can tell that's like, no, the intensity has been ratcheted up to infinity here. This is Jesus being divine Jesus. But then there's also Jesus, son of Mary. Jesus Bar Joseph going around talking with people he has befriended and people he wants to be friends with. It's amazing. I love it. I have watched over a dozen episodes. I've watched all of season 1. We're getting into season 2. It's fantastic. The Chosen, watch it. Because you get to see what Frank was talking about. It'll give you the idea that Jesus could laugh. Jesus did tell jokes. Jesus danced. Baptist. But it's really good. And I feel like there are some things we don't emphasize enough as people trying to understand the mysteries of Scripture. There's some things we overemphasize, and we need to really think about it. So yeah, sorry, I kind of
No,
derailed for Shad there.
It fits. So, but I don't know. I think I've said most of the things I needed to say about this one. Frank, did you have any last thoughts you wanted to put in on this poem or related subject matter since?
Well, I did read a bit on Crashaw. He was his mother died. We don't know exactly when. Don't know if it was in childbirth or in while he was an infant. But his father remarried, and he became very close to that woman for a very short period of time. She died in childbirth after only 17 months of marriage, and his sibling died in childbirth also. But he, never having that mother figure, he became very close to Mary in, Mary, Mother of Jesus, in his prayers and devotions. And he has some very interesting poems about like her view of the cross and her view of the nativity.
Yeah, I this is the only thing of his I've seen so far. I'm gonna have to look up a few other things, like look up more of his writing because I don't know too much about him otherwise.
His dad
Go
was
ahead.
his dad was a preacher, very sympathetic to the Puritans, and Crashaw himself became an Anglican divine, but then became Catholic, and think he remained a lay order in the Catholics. He went pretty much. He had to go to the continent after his conversion. They weren't, yeah, not going to have the Romans up there.
So Nate, how about you? Any last thoughts on this one?
I know we kind of go far afield on these things sometimes, and we don't always talk about heavily theological subjects. But if you're watching and you are not a person of faith, I would suggest very strongly that you go and have a swim in this deluge of deliverance, lest you be drowned. I'm not trying to speak any threats. I'm not trying to speak any judgments. I'm just telling the truth. There will come a day of judgment. And those on Jesus' side will come out white. We will be clean. We will be innocent. Those who are not, they will be thrown out. And so we have to choose. The price is paid. We have to choose, though. Do we accept it? Or do we continue to live in rebellion? I pray everybody here makes the right choice. And think about the words that have been written about this and understand that they do not really approach the reality of this. I think about things like this at Christmas time, because I know that this baby we're all so happy about is going to grow into the man that we later tear to pieces. And that's his whole reason for being there and being born. And it was all in love. And so please, keep in mind the sacrifice and decide if it's something you want to be a part of. Jesus loves you. I'm rooting for you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good place to stop. So thank you both for joining me, and God be with you.
Also with you.